All right, guys, welcome back.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. Today, I'm your host, Zach, and we're going to be talking about the parables. Here we go. But first, before we get into that, let me introduce you to my co-hosts. I'm very excited to have the wonderful Zoe on. Oh, wait,
no.
ready?
No!
Oh,
you have so much more rhythm than me!
And Izzy!
Oh!
Izzy, you have great rhythm. What do you mean?
We saw
Hey, we're so excited to jump into the parables. If you didn't know, we've actually done a parable series previously, and that's up on our channel. You can look it up. But we're going to be running through 4 new ones. And so, hey, if you want to get a little ahead of the curve, you can flip to Luke 14 in your Bible right now. We're going to be introducing what are parables, how do we read them, and then we're going to go into the parable of the Great Banquet. I'm excited.
Yummy.
And hey, if you don't know, our vision at The Way here is to reach every young person with the good news of the gospel. And what would really help us to do that on this channel, wherever you're watching, if you're on YouTube, you could like and subscribe and drop a little comment. That'll help it reach more young people. And if you're on Apple and Spotify, I think, what is it that they can do?
You can follow and give
Rate
a rating.
Follow and rate.
Don't
there
rate
you go.
Izzy, rate the podcast.
So if you're on
Either
any of
or.
those channels, drop that and you can help us out with the vision. We appreciate you so much. Let's get into the episode.
Hey, roll the credits.
Come on. Hey, we're going to get into this parable. I said in the intro, we're going to get into this parable, the Great Banquet. But beforehand, I feel like it's really helpful to understand parables. So I'd love to hear in your guys' words.
Oh, no.
What is a parable?
A parable is something that Jesus did quite a lot. And it's basically like a story where he uses a story to give a point. But sometimes they feel a bit like metaphors or similes, and you kind of have to like dig through what it means.
Yeah.
But Jesus spoke in them a lot.
He did.
That was an awful explanation, but that's
good.
what I'm giving right
Okay,
now.
over to Zoe.
Yeah. yeah.
That was so good. I Googled it because I wanted to know what
Oh.
what Google would say.
I obviously didn't Google it.
But shall I say what Google says?
Please.
Yeah, hit us with
Google
it.
says that a parable is a simple story used to illustrate a moral or spiritual lesson as told by Jesus in the Gospels.
Very
And
well put.
I would also add that oftentimes a lot of people didn't understand the message that Jesus was actually trying to convey through his parables. And like we see in some of the parables, his disciples then asking him, wait, Jesus, what do you actually mean when you just said that
Right.
parable? And he's like, okay, well, I guess I'll tell you clearly and plainly that this is what I was talking about. So yeah, like there's no pressure to fully understand everything is what I'm saying.
That's such a good point.
Even
yeah.
the disciples didn't know and they were right there with him. So
Right. Yeah, and it's like, it's meant to draw you in.
Mm.
It's meant to make you ask more questions.
Yeah.
That's what Jesus really wants. I often think I've found in my own life, like Jesus doesn't necessarily just want me to get all the answers and be done, but he wants to take me on a journey. And that's what a relationship is, right? He wants to keep talking about these things with me, wrestling them through and figuring them out over a lifetime, which I think is actually like way more cool than
That's lovely.
kind of just getting a
lovely,
download. You know what I mean?
That's very nice.
And actually, I was wondering, like, do we use parables today, or is that just an ancient thing? And then I thought about this last night, literally as I was falling asleep.
Whoa.
The boy who cried wolf, right? You guys know this story, yeah?
Yeah,
I do.
Like he says, there's
a wolf.
there's a wolf.
There wasn't a
There's
wolf.
no wolf. He said, there's a wolf. There's no wolf. And then when the wolf actually comes, right?
And he says,
Then he gets cooked because
No one believes
everyone's
him.
like, he's not
Believes
being
him.
serious,
He's a liar.
right? Yeah, so that
"That boy's a
story
liar."
is a story about a boy and a wolf, but it's not actually about that, right? Like it has deeper meaning. It tells us something moral, like you were saying. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But then the other interesting thing is you always need to, with a parable, like understand some sort of background. So I'll give you an example. If you grew up somewhere where wolves didn't exist, you might not understand the boy who cried wolf, right?
Yeah.
You might not understand the danger and the silliness of saying that there's a wolf when there's not.
That's true.
So you need to understand some background. And we'll see with the parables over these next 4 episodes, but also today, that like there's things we need to understand in the context of the story that help us to get the moral or spiritual value from it. You feel that?
Wow.
I do feel
That's
it.
a bar. And it's
Thanks,
true.
man.
You're welcome.
Yo,
You just have to name that. Just have to build you up.
thanks. Hey, you can give her a fist bump. There you go. Why were you so upset about that?
Izzy, your hair looks great today.
Let's continue.
No.
Debbie Downer in the corner.
I just felt left out. It's fine.
Yeah, let's continue. Should we
Yeah.
get into the Bible verse?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's do it.
Okay. Izzy, do you want to read? Okay, you look very scared.
I just am not the best reading out loud, but I'll do my best.
I know you aren't, but I feel like you got this. Listen. I didn't mean that. Oh no.
You know this massive insecurity you have? I agree with it. Want to get another fist pump again on that one?
No.
You know what? I can read.
What I meant by that
You know what?
was,
How much can I read for you, sir?
so what I meant by that was, you've told me that before. I wasn't trying to confirm.
You're not agreeing with it.
It's okay.
Because it's not true. You are a great reader.
Now it's
You
'cause my-
are a great reader.
Because
You
my
are.
contact lenses just aren't very good, so I just can't see very much. So that's more of it. But if I can do it, how much may I read for you
That was such
today?
a real moment.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay, you're gonna read verse. I know you are. It was crazy. You're gonna read verse 12 to 24 in chapter
All of it?
14.
All of it.
Izzy,
Yeah.
you've got
Yeah.
this.
So Luke 14, verse 12 to
I don't
24.
know if we're splitting
And
up at
you,
all.
what do you read again? I can't remember. You read
NIV.
NIV.
Then Jesus said to his host, when you give a luncheon or dinner, do not invite your friends, your brothers or sisters, your relatives, or your rich neighbors. If you do, they may invite you back, and so you will be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed. Although they cannot repay you, you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. When one of those at the table with him heard this, he said to Jesus, blessed is the one who will eat at the feast in the kingdom of God. Page 10. Removing post-it note. Jesus replied, a certain man was preparing a great banquet and invited many guests. At the time of the banquet, he sent his servant to tell those who had been invited, come, for everything is now ready. But they all alike began to make excuses. The first said, I have just bought a field and I must go and see it. Please excuse me. Another said, I have just bought 5 yoke of oxen and I'm on my way to try them out. Please excuse me. Still another said, I have just got married, so I can't come. The servant came back and reported this to his master. Then the owner of the house became angry and ordered his servant, go out quickly into the streets and alleys of the town and bring in the poor, the crippled, the blind and the lame. Sir, the servant said, what you ordered has been done, but there is still room. Then the master told his servant, go out to the roads and country lanes and compel them to come in, so that my house will be full. I tell you, not one of those who were invited will get a taste of my banquet.
All right, what a Bible passage. Well, I think this parable is kind of interesting because Jesus offers us a little bit of teaching beforehand, which sets up what he's trying to communicate. So I wonder if we just go through verse 12 to 14 first, break down this teaching. What's the importance of it? How can we bring it into our daily lives today? And then we can go through the story, bring some context, all that stuff. Does that sound good to you guys?
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, cool. Okay, so why do you think Jesus says this? He says, when you give a dinner or banquet, in my translation, the ESV, don't invite your friends or your brothers, but invite those who, I guess, can't repay you. So those who, like, it almost seems to infer to me like those who you wouldn't normally invite. Why is he making this point? Why is that important?
Well, I think it just shows like the radical generosity and love that comes with who Jesus is and his character. And I think as well, sometimes we're called to do things that might be outside of our comfort zone. Like I think being like others centered is like you're not going to put yourself first. And of course, it's natural to want to invite your friends somewhere. But if you're thinking about others outside of your circle, then actually inviting them in is the most loving thing you can do. And so I think it's like a bit of a challenge here, and a challenge to us today to kind of extend our invitations beyond just our friends, and extend our love, and extend our generosity and our hospitality, and like the fruits of the Spirit, our kindness, everything, to everyone that we encounter, and especially those who are anything in this list, the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind. The people that need to be shown love, that might not have encountered it. Actually, I don't mean to imply that they haven't encountered love before, but I mean to make sure that you show love to everybody.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the marginalised.
Yeah, the
isn't it?
marginalised.
Right.
Those
That's
that
what I'm
are-
trying to say.
Mm.
Not that they don't know what love is. That's
Yeah.
great. That's
Yeah,
what
Yeah,
I'm
the
trying to say.
marginalised. I think it's an interesting thing, because I don't think it's wrong to ever like invite friends.
Yeah.
But I think this is talking about like only inviting those people, and it's also speaking about those who could repay you, which is interesting. As like, are you being friends with people only because they can give you something in return? And I think that's what he's challenging. Like, he may have seen that these people were inviting people from a position of pride, or or like exclusion, or because they're going to get something from it. And Jesus is saying, no, we need to invite those even when we don't get anything in return from them. And that's how we should love, as if we're getting nothing in return, because that's not what relationship with Jesus is like. And so for me, that's how I read that.
I think it's interesting as well, because this sets up the parameters within which Jesus tells this story. So it also tells us, right, like he tells a parable of a great banquet, but he tells it whilst at
A banquet.
a banquet, right? Like he's at a dinner party, which I think is super interesting, because sometimes like I forget this about Jesus, but when I read the Gospels, I think like Jesus had some really like hot takes.
Yeah.
Like he said some things that literally got him killed, right?
This would
Like,
have
we
been an
know
awkward
that.
conversation, surely.
Like at some point, Jesus was actually highly controversial with those who were taking advantage of others, which I think really shows his heart. And so it's interesting thinking like it actually says he said this to the man who had invited him to the dinner party.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting. So he's like actually confronting this guy about his own decisions of who he's invited.
Yeah.
And also I read that at the time, what usually happened was you would invite people to dinner at your house who were like of similar status to you, so that you could both receive more honor in the process.
Sure, that makes sense.
So I'm going to invite someone who is, to put it in today's words, as cool, as popular, as wealthy, as connected as I am, to come to dinner. We can rub shoulders a bit. We can talk about the people we know. We can agree on all these things that we agree on. And then we can go our separate ways and we'll both be better off for it. But Jesus says, no. Let's not just do that, because think of all the people that excludes. Let's actually invite those people that are normally excluded, which I think is an interesting setup to then him talking about, because the teaching then that he goes into after this is not just about who you invite to dinner, right?
No.
It starts talking about like the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
So should we start talking about that, the rest of it?
Yes, do
Yeah.
it.
Get into the actual parable. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's just start in verse 15. So mine says, when one of those who reclined at table with him heard these things, he said to him, blessed is everyone who will eat bread in the kingdom of God. So again, just carrying on with that idea, here he's the guy who hosted the dinner party is presenting a theological idea, which actually goes back to, there's a number of verses in Isaiah. It's I've got here in my notes. It's first in Isaiah chapter 25, verse 6-9. It's like the first idea that God's kingdom is and heaven is like a great banquet. So here he actually shifts from talking about the dinner table to talking about God's kingdom. And so he makes a theological statement here. And Jesus responds with this parable. And he talks about a man who hosts a great banquet. Who do we think this man is? Is this a literal man, or is this symbolic, like the boy who cried wolf? What do you guys think?
I think it's symbolic.
Who do you think it's symbolic of?
God the Father. Is that?
What might make you say that?
Well, because in Because in John, is it in John? In one of the Gospels, Jesus says to his disciples that the place that he's going to, which he was talking about, ascending to heaven, is that he's going to his Father's house, and he's going to prepare a room for the disciples and for us in his Father's house. And there's many rooms in this Father's mansion. So that's why, to me, when I read like a parable about a banquet or like about a house, I just do associate it with God the Father, because he's the one that's been like, come on in.
Yeah.
Don't come in.
Yeah, and I think you're probably right. I think that's kind of how I read it as well, is Jesus here is talking about God the Father. And God the Father invites us to this banquet. Remember, if we look back at Isaiah 25, as I was just saying, this great banquet is kind of like, it's almost like another picturing of heaven, right? And so he's saying that God's inviting us into this beautiful relationship with him in heaven. But as we carry on, some people say no. Awkward. Izzy, do you want to read like just those few first verses in the parable to us?
Yes. Jesus replied, a certain man's was preparing a great banquet and invited many guests. At the time of the banquet, he sent the servant to tell those who he had... It's all just gone down the drain. Who had been invited, come, for everything is now ready. But they all alike began to make excuses. The first said, I've just bought a field and must go and see it. Please excuse me. Another said, I've bought 5 yoke of oxen and I'm on my way to try them out. Please excuse me. Still another said, I've just got married. I can't come either. I can't come. I'm not allowed to do it either. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so in the story, right? I'm going to drop a little bit of my knowledge on this, and then I want to hear what you guys have to say. But based on my understanding and my reading, the way that they used to set up these dinner parties was almost like they would first send out like an RSVP or like a save the date, right?
Yeah.
So that was the first invitation. But then when everything had been prepared, so picture like a wedding, right? You would send out an RSVP or a save the date. And then once like you had actually prepared everything, then you start to send out all the details, right? You've booked the tent, you've booked the food, the drinks, you start to send everything out to everyone so that they know all of the details as well. And then they show up after everything has been prepared. It's kind of like that. So someone is sent out, in this case, from the master, and this servant goes out and says, would you like to come to this dinner party? And it's assumed in the story that they would have all said, yeah. I'd love to come. I'd love to come to your dinner party. So the servant goes back and he says, Master, these are all the people that wanted to come. The master says, great, let's make preparations according to how many people we've expected to come.
Yeah.
And then when they go to tell everyone that everything's ready, everyone starts saying no.
Start making excuses.
Which is super right?
Yeah.
If you've said yes,
that's crazy.
and then your last minute like, actually,
Sorry, mate.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
It's like we've already prepared the whole place.
Yeah.
We got all the food ready. We've ordered all the cutlery. You know what I mean? The caterer's just outside.
Yeah.
He made food for you. I got your plate right here.
Yeah.
And they said, nah, I'm not coming, which I think is kind of interesting.
It's really interesting. I also think the excuses are actually hilarious. I wrote bruh on my notes. I was like, what do you mean I bought a field and I have to see it? 2 sides of that. What do you mean? Second side, who buys a field without viewing it first? Like, it's just like, both of it's just
so
foolish.
true.
And like, even the ox, like, who buys an ox without testing it out? Like, both of those, like, really foolish, which is like, and they're just random excuses, right? And then I think the third one is like, I just got married. And I think we can often do that, is like put family and friendships and relationships above Jesus. But to be honest, all 3 of these things they're just excuses. They just didn't want to come. And I think, again, putting this in light of like God, and it's like actually God's giving this invitation for us to come to his table, and it's so easy to have excuses. May that be that we bought a field or bought a new game and want to play on it, or we want to hang out with our boyfriend, or whatever that may be. Like, they just didn't actually want to come. Like, your excuses, at the end, the bottom line of it, you just didn't want it. And I think it's really interesting that this is so relatable. Like, how often can we just think of an excuses to not go to church, to not read a Bible, to not, which I think this is actually a bit, this isn't necessarily about like reading a Bible. This is more about like accepting God as a whole. Maybe that is true. Like, how often do we see that as because you want to do what we want to do instead of like coming to God? But I literally wrote bruh, and I was like, I can't write that in my actual Bible. That feels like, I wrote fools instead. Felt more holy. Like, fools who buys a field and checks it out afterwards.
Yeah.
So true. You wouldn't buy something that's expensive.
And not go see it or test it first.
Right? Like, that's
I've
just
never
silly.
thought that. Like, that's so...
Well, what if I invite you to my birthday party and you're like, sorry, bought a field?
Well, I just, like, what? I do think as well there's such a lack of urgency from all three of these people.
And they knew the day.
There was a set date. There was a set time. They knew. They said that they were going to go. But then all of a sudden they're like, oh, actually, I don't want it. What do you mean you don't want it? Like, you've already agreed to it. And not only that, but you've been invited. Like what you were saying earlier, that's an honor to be invited to a banquet.
Right.
It's, well, from how you're framing it, it's like a big connection opportunity. It's like, it's not only going to benefit you because you're, it's not only going to benefit your host because you're showing up and you're being kind and courteous, but it's going to benefit you because you're eating such good food that's being prepared for you. And you get like fellowship with all these people. So it's like, how are you turning your back on that just to go see something 100%. That you've just bought on a whim? I don't know when they bought it, but I just think it's so interesting here that they have such a lack of urgency because it's like, you knew this was happening. How could you forget about it? I just don't really understand. And
like, side message, I don't even think this is necessarily the main point Jesus is making, but your excuses reveal your priorities.
I was literally about to say that.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
your
so excuses reveal your priorities. And I think, like, especially excuses in the moment feel timely.
Wow.
They always feel timely.
Do.
I have to do this.
Yeah.
It's time, right? I need to check out this field.
I must go and see it.
I must go and see it. I must go see these ox that I've purchased. It's timely, right?
Yeah.
I've married someone. I need to go be with them.
Yeah.
And it's like, what I think is, as soon as you say you're going to do something, well, not today, but tomorrow, you never get around to doing it. Right? Like, just to be real.
Yeah.
And that happens with me, like, in my own life.
Yeah.
Oh,
procrastination.
shoot. Like, I do want to spend time in prayer, but this. But I've got a basketball game. But my friends are asking me to hang out. But I need to finish an essay for school. And listen, I'm not saying all of those things are bad, but I'm saying the moment that I say, I'm going to push God to tomorrow, I end up usually not getting around to it.
Yeah. That's so
and that's
true.
tough.
That's so true. Oh my God.
And these examples of their priorities is property, work, relationships. Like, they're not necessarily like bad things.
Yeah.
But if they're your priority, then they distract them from accepting God's invitation.
Yeah.
And I do think this is also Jesus' response to verse 15, where he was like, blessed, the guy was saying, blessed is the one who will eat at the feast of the kingdom of God. And Jesus is basically saying, like, you admire the banquet. Are you ready to receive the invite and come, or are you going to make excuses? Like, that's basically what he's saying. And I guess, like, bigger picture, what he's referring to is probably a lot of like the fact that these were Pharisees and Jews that knew the like that Jesus had been prophesied and was the invitation had been said that he's gonna come. And now Jesus was there. It's now the day. He's here, and he's going, are you going to accept the invitation to know me or not?
Fire.
They're not recognizing the importance
Dang.
that he's there.
And then what it goes on to talk about is the marginalized, or those that aren't part of the Jews, or the Gentiles, which we talk a lot about in lots of our like Bible studies, which is like, it's those that maybe didn't have the initial invitation because they weren't part of the Israelites or the Jews, or the Jewish heritage. And that's now Jesus actually hinting, or less subtly hinting, this is also going to be for them as well. But I think this is the real challenge to the Pharisees of being like, you knew I was coming, now the day is here, are you going to accept the invitation and sit at my table?
Yeah, I mean 100%.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, I just wanted to hit one more thing before we move on from these verses.
Yeah.
Because I was always super confused by I have married a wife and therefore I cannot come. Because I was kind of like, if you
bring
got
your
married,
wife.
it's kind of valid to actually go spend time with your wife.
Oh, right.
But then I realized, right, when I read up on the fact that you would have a previous invitation to which you would RSVP and then you had the follow-up,
Yeah.
I realized, right, if you had said yes to the first invitation, you wouldn't book your wedding right before you had something that was already in the
Yeah.
diary that you needed to go to. It wouldn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
So like essentially what I think he's saying is actually this guy has basically said, I've literally just married someone to spend time with them, if you know what I mean. And therefore I'm not gonna come because I'm spending time with this person who I've just married on a whim, which is like actually like the worst one of them all.
Yeah.
Because it's just like,
That's
oh
so
damn,
true.
you literally like did something just to get out of this and just to get off with someone.
I pictured it literally more as like relational, and I was like, actually, relationships are important, but God is more important still.
Yeah.
Is how I read that. But you go crazy.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
is
I know.
crazy.
I know. That's what, anyways, I might be wrong, but that's kind of what was hitting me about like the first and second invitation.
Yeah.
Because like personally, if someone invites me to a big banquet and I'm not going to put my wedding like
On the same.
directly before, like the day before.
Yeah, no.
This doesn't make sense.
Because then you can't go.
Yeah. And surely if I had
bring
planned my
wifey.
wedding in advance.
Yeah, bring wifey. That's what I was just thinking.
Yeah. But also like if you would actually plan a wedding like way more in advance
Then a banquet.
Yeah.
than a banquet.
That's real.
So
yeah.
you should have
So
been
you
able
would
to
have
say
known
no.
and been like, no, I'm going to spend time with my wife.
Yeah, beforehand.
So it was like, yeah, it's a relationship on a whim, which is kind of
That's
crazy.
so interesting. I've actually never like realized that about this.
Yeah. Okay, question as we move on.
Okay.
Say you were the host, the master.
Uh-huh.
How would you feel when everyone rejects the second invitation?
I'd be so upset.
I have to say, I think this actually happens so much nowadays.
It does. It happens
so
all
much.
the time.
Wait,
I
what?
No, it
genuinely,
does, it does,
I
it does.
find like birthdays, especially, people go like, yeah, I'll be there. On the day, there's always at least like, there's so many dropouts. I hosted a party. I'm not going to explain it all, but I hosted a party like last May. You guys are both there. Thanks. I would say on the day, 15 people dropped out and didn't even tell me. But I know afterwards because I know who I invited.
Okay, how did that make you feel? Like, how did you feel when
I was a bit
they
like,
didn't come?
well, one, they didn't even tell me, so I was like, just tell me. But it was exactly that. I was like, I gave you the invites to this.
Right.
Beautiful
in
designed
advance.
invites.
Yeah.
Like months before, you knew it was, you spoke to me about it, you were prepared, like there's table space booked for you.
Yeah.
And so when they didn't come, I was a bit like, oh, I thought you loved me more than that.
Yeah.
But is that some of them like is actually not that deep. Some of them did have stuff legit come up, and also I feel like just a random party is a bit different than like a full on banquet.
Mhm.
But it does like it's really sad because I'm like, I want to spend time with you. I want to celebrate with you. I want to have fun with you. And so if you just don't turn up, it's like, oh, that's a shame.
Right. I want to capture that word angry and
Okay.
compare that to how this master actually responds.
Yeah.
Yeah, you feel me?
He was angry.
He could have been angry, right?
But it says he's angry.
He could have responded out of anger,
Yeah.
but he does something else. Okay, here we go. I'm going to read from verse 21.
Whoa.
So the servant came and reported these things to his master. Then the master of the house became angry. But watch what he does. And said to his servant, go out quickly to the streets and lanes of the city and bring in the poor and crippled and blind and lame. And then he goes a step further. And the servant said, sir, what you commanded has been done, and still there is room. So he says, go out to the highways and hedges and compel people to come in, that my house may be filled. I find
Highways
it
and
fascinating.
hedges.
Highways and hedges.
Interesting.
That's like, what that means is like the outskirts of the city.
We roads and country lanes in this trans.
Yeah, we got roads.
Roads and country lanes?
Yeah.
What do you got, like the America translation?
The
roads and country
It's like
lanes.
English. We don't have highways in the UK. Yours is like the American one.
Oh.
Ours is the English one.
Yours is the English one.
Yeah.
I didn't even clock that.
Okay.
Highways and hedges.
Yeah, but isn't that interesting? So like, instead of just being angry at everyone else,
Yeah.
He says, let me use what I've got and
Well, he's
still be a
prepared it
giving
all.
master.
Like, he's got all this food. It doesn't want to go to waste. Like, he's put in all this preparation for who knows how long. It's like, well, if this goes to waste, then that's really annoying. So it's actually, the anger was probably just because he was clear. And it was saying everyone gave excuses on here. It was like all together. We're like, And so he's got a whole party full of food. And it's like, that's rude. But I don't want to waste it.
Yeah. Okay, let's shift our focus from who denies the invite to who are the people that are given the secondary invite.
Yeah.
Who are these people?
Yeah.
In both in the story, but also like in real life.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I guess they're the unexpected. They're the people that nobody would think to invite to their banquet, to their fancy high-end banquet. And I think, like what you were saying, Izzy, it's the Gentiles. It's the people that weren't included in
the initial invitation.
I'm thinking of like the Mosaic law and just the covenant that God made with the Jewish people.
Sorry, I heard law as in like
L-O-R-E.
like law. I was like, like the Mosaic law, and I was like, yeah.
Law,
Sorry.
L-A-W.
Carry on.
Okay, tell me, explain for those who might not know, Gentiles.
Gentiles is anyone that is not a Jew.
Okay,
so
cool.
I don't think any of us are Jewish.
Yeah,
Not to my
right.
knowledge.
So we're all Gentiles.
So we're all Gentiles.
Right.
And so that like term still applies today. And so, I mean, he's at the Pharisee's house having this banquet. I can imagine this would have been a very out-of-pocket statement for Jesus to make.
Yeah.
To be like, actually, this invitation now extends beyond you guys. It now extends beyond the initial chosen people. It extends to everybody else that wasn't chosen.
Yeah. One thing I do want to point out is that it says, go to the highways and hedges and roads and country lanes and compel them to come in. And I thought that was really interesting because it's like compel is like, not persuade, but kind of persuade is like encourage them to come in. And this is talking about those on the outskirts. So it's talking about the crippled, blind, lame. But that is just talking about those that you wouldn't normally like associate with your day-to-day life in that culture. But it's saying compel them to come in, which is basically like show them love, like make them know that they are welcome to come in. Like it's a very active it's very active of being like, you are loved, you are welcomed, you can come, even though you didn't have that initial invitation. And although you wouldn't normally be the same level as you were speaking about earlier, it's like, no, you are welcome and you are loved. And that's like the root of it, which I thought was really nice.
You're wanted.
You're wanted.
I find it super, super interesting how essentially like Jesus is saying the invitation is open to everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's already been open to those who were previously invited, to those of status and cultural or societal worth. It's then also brought wider to anyone who's kind of around. And then it's like, he just says basically like, go outside of the city and invite like anyone who you find.
Yeah.
Like anyone.
Yeah.
Which I think is really interesting because, I get so many people who are not Christian asking like, well, if God is so good, how can there be hell? And I think it's interesting how Jesus here, he almost makes it seem as though those who don't want to be in relationship with him ultimately for life everlasting in heaven, it's just their choice. And it's simply our choice as well. If we want to accept the invitation, we can through Jesus and through the cross and through his resurrection. But equally, we can say no. And it's not like, right? It's not that the master doesn't love the people that don't come to the banquet.
Yeah.
Actually, he really loves the people who don't come to the banquet because he invited them.
Yeah.
But notice, they don't love him back. And so they don't come to the banquet. And the onus is not on the master, right? The fault is not on the master for them not eating well that night.
Oh, Wow.
Did you clock that?
I clocked it. I
Mm.
try not to say clock it, but I thought it.
Thanks. So maybe I shouldn't have said clock
Yeah,
it.
it's fine. It's good.
Anyways, and honestly, like I don't want to open up a huge subject there because obviously there's so much on like heaven and hell that we could get into in another episode. And it doesn't really, I don't think like the emphasis here is on what happens to those who don't come to the banquet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But all of that to say, how exciting is it that everyone's invited?
Yeah.
Mm.
And that gives us so much to do around like, can we also invite others?
Are we the servants?
I think we are,
Mm.
right? And that's like the mission. It says at the end of Matthew, go make disciples of all nations, right?
Yeah.
I think that's like metaphorically bearing the invitation and saying to
Wow, yeah.
others like, yo, guess what?
Oh, it's telling of the good news.
You can join me at this party. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Invitation extended.
Extended.
That's so cool, actually. I didn't even think about that.
Mm.
There's like the outpourings of when you're invited to something good, especially with this master. Like, it's so cool that he has so much space in his house that he's like, go literally to the furthest place that you physically can on your feet and get all of those people to come because there'll still be room for them.
That's a big old castle.
And like how generous that master is as well to want his house to be filled with like all these people that I'm assuming he hasn't met yet. But obviously God knows all of us. Oh, and he loves all of us, thanks God. But I just think it's so cool. Like sorry, that did okay. But I know, I just think it's so cool that there's this invitation that is extended to everyone and that we can also extend the invitation to everyone because there's room in the Father's house. Like there's actually room. God will not be like, there's no room for you, Izzy, because there's room for you, Izzy. Do you know what I mean?
I know, I do know what you mean, yeah.
I'm curious, Izzy, what's like your one takeaway for daily life as a Christian from this parable?
From this parable. I think we should jump back to the beginning of what we read.
Oh,
actually.
take it back now, y'all.
So if we go back to the 12 to the 14, which is talking about inviting those that can't repay you. And I think then, because that's the context of Jesus telling the story. So let's go back to what he's answering. And so he's speaking about like it's costly. Like if people can't repay you, it's going to cost you something to invite them, to tell them about Jesus or to spend time with you, whatever that may be. And it does cost us something. And it's living with the eternal perspective, like knowing that God sees it and you will get that like reward in heaven, in the resurrection, all it's saying. And it's like actually following the pattern of God's generosity should be our standard. As actually we should live each day knowing that actually we need to live in the generosity God has and follow he died. That's the cost he paid for us. Is how can we extend this invite to those in a way that will also cost us to follow Jesus' generosity. I don't know if that was super concise, but that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, no, that's really good.
I think that's a great takeaway. Like Jesus wants us to be like him, right? And like the Father. So let's reach out. I think that's a great takeaway. And it's so easy to apply. Like I think for everyone in every sphere, whether you're like in work, whether you're in school, whether you're at like a sports game or practice, or whether you're in like a music ensemble. I don't know what it is that each of us does, but for every person watching, even for us three, like there's going to be circles that we're in where there's people on the outside.
Yeah.
And people that aren't really necessarily included in everything. And you're right. It costs us something to actually like be friends with them sometimes.
Yeah.
It costs us something to love them, but that's the truest form of love, isn't it?
Yeah.
Love that costly. In it. Yeah, I know. I'm kind of getting like really London now.
Sure.
Anyways, okay. I wanted to finish off this episode by reading this Isaiah 25 verse 6, which is the earliest prophecy that links the kingdom of heaven to a great banquet. And it says this. I'm just going to read verse 6, but if you read Isaiah 25, it's awesome. It says, on this mountain, the Lord of hosts will make for all people, a feast of rich food, a feast of well-aged wine, of rich food full of marrow, of aged wine well refined. My mouth is watering. I'm gassed.
Can't wait.
That sounds unreal. And that's what we have to look forward to. So, yeah, invite all your friends, but more importantly, look out for those who might not be getting the invitation on the regular. And I think that's a great thing to end on. Anything else to say?
Yeah, can you when you drop an emoji?
Oh, what emoji?
I have a few in my head, but I feel like a fist pump emoji would be like
Fist bump.
Yeah.
I was thinking like steak emoji.
Oh my gosh, just fill it with all the foods possible.
Ooh.
Yeah.
All the foods.
Yes,
I was
make
thinking
it
of the
a
hug
feast.
emoji though. Why was I thinking of that?
No.
It's like bringing them
Okay,
in.
you're loved, you're welcome here, but absolutely not.
Okay,
We're
just
gonna
do
make
So we're going to
want-
finish the episode there.
I want the comment section to look like a feast. I
Yeah.
want it to
Okay, I
only
like
be
that.
food.
Yeah.
I like that. Hey, guys, thanks so much for joining us. I hope this really spoke to you, and I hope that the Lord is with you this week. And guys, keep your eyes peeled for the next 3 parables. I'm not going to tell you what they are, but you'll see them when they come out. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time at The Way. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.